I lost you. I don't know why we were cut off. So what we try to do is we divide it by percentages, and if you can get, I'll see if anybody comes back. You try to get a given amount, whatever that person needs, a given amount of a certain energetic stream to whoever needs it. And if one person can carry it, great, and deliver the whole thing, that's fantastic, but very often they can't. So you'll send, a couple of people with that energetic stream. That's why sometimes we don't, have you ever had a circumstance where like you keep meeting the same problem over and over? Sometimes it's not always that you didn't get it right, or you need to, why can't I solve this problem? Sometimes you still are in need of a certain frequency, and your spirit guides couldn't necessarily get it to you all at once. So it goes by percentages. Some people, based on our individual recipe, we have natural affinities towards certain things, and we come down with our own histories intact. You may not remember them, but we come down with certain abilities and ways of doing things. So if you're somebody who has a very strong history of having extremely clear boundaries, or dividing things, like you have this propensity for establishing borders, division, really clear, warring energy. You might say, well, we need a peace accord. I'm going to learn to, I'm using you know what? I'm just going to give you the specific example. It's easier. Spirit can't take just any avenue. We will look for someone who can effectively carry it to where it needs to go. Certain people are more cut out to do certain jobs than others. That's where like talent comes in. I have a natural affinity for connectivity, making connections, and I came down in this lifetime with a real knowledge of the way everything is connected. So it's going to be a very easy job for me to do things like establish connections with other people, establish an accord or a peace treaty, or something like that. Negotiations where I promote unity, because that's basically what I do, is I promote unity between disparate things that want to be in conflict. Somebody else with different qualities doesn't mean you're better or worse. You're just a different portion of the puzzle, and you have different talents that are needed elsewhere. Like, I'm not the person, you should never send me on a diplomatic errand, ever. I'm definitely not the diplomat. I have a very bald delivery. They gave me the job. We in the construct. It was established that I'm going to be the messenger, because I have this long history of delivering very large quantities of information that come through me. It would be harder to send that through a different member of the party. We have to balance it. It is actually going to balance naturally after I deliver this large chunk of information. The other people are going to be able to speak easier. But there is a sequence, there's an order, and we put certain safeguards in place to enforce the adherence in order to get everybody up, so that it served everyone equally. All sides are being served. It would force cooperation, the energetic construct. I keep meaning to get back to this to this example. And I would ask that if you're listening to it, just hear, try not to, I'm aware that, I'm sorry, I'm not explaining this well. I'm aware that I don't know who it's coming from. I don't know who's stalking me or who's watching me. I really don't, for real, I don't. I'm just aware that it's happening. I think that there are certain people within the construct. I could hazard a guess, but it really would be a guess as to who's doing it. I can sense the larger energy stream, and I know who carries those energies, but I don't know. I feel like this is what I'm thinking right now, and then I'll get back to my example. It feels to me, I'm being fully transparent, it feels to me like people are upset with me because I'm saying something that they're hoping I don't say, but I actually don't know who the upset parties are. So I don't know what information I'm supposed to say or what I'm not supposed to say. And there's also an interplay of energetic forces, which if you don't understand them, it's going to be very easy to point the finger at me and say, you're putting information out on the air and I don't want it to come out. But every force evolves a form, and I have no way of holding that back if you're all gossiping behind my back. So I'm not saying that you are. I don't know that you are. But there's a geometry that we have to adhere to that's not in my control. It's just like I will have no choice. If I can't reach you individually, there's a certain amount of information that comes through me regardless. And it's not up to me. There are some things I can control, some things I can't control. And everything has depending on how you look at it, it's going to, there's a, whatever the action is, it can be perceived depending on how you view it as being either good or bad. It's really both. Right now, I've basically been cut off from contact with the other members in the construct. I have a telepathic connection with my twin that is unseverable, and I couldn't sever it if I wanted to. We're entangled. There's a silver cord. We can't cut it. It's just, that's the way it is. It's telepathic. There's nothing I can do to turn that off. There's nothing he can do to turn that off. The way they interfere with it, however, if you don't want us to have private communication, what they usually will do is try to, since they know they can't sever that internal communication, they will flood. They know I'm clairaudient. They know all of my qualities. They know I'm very clairaudient. So what they will do is dump so much extraneous information that I have to sift through all of it in order to find the one, and they mimic each other. So sometimes I have a very difficult time distinguishing what direction I'm headed in. It would be a hell of a lot easier for me if I got direct communication from the external party, because if I could see something or guarantee that the message was actually from one person or another, it would give me the data I needed. So if I take a misstep, just bear that in mind. I'm not intending to take anyone down. I'm actually really genuinely trying to work for the benefit of all parties. It's a circumstance. I was going to talk about the assassination on a bridge that took place in the Middle Ages. And you'd think, well, what does that have to do with the price of beans? But I want to use that example not because I'm calling somebody bad. It's actually the way I'm looking at it is that certain people in the construct have a natural abilities in certain areas that I lack. You know that. They have certain abilities toward facade. Facade is maybe a worse way of, has kind of a judgment in it. I don't mean it to. I just mean like social niceties, protocol. Like there will be people whose specialty skill set allows them toward a certain degree of diplomacy. They're going to be very polished, very focused on their external appearance. They're going to be very aware of like court etiquette, the way things are done, the way you present things, the way to get someone to do something. Usually it can be very easily turned toward manipulation also. Sales, like salespeople do this kind of thing. They have a talent for that sort of manipulating of the psyche. You could turn it toward that in a negative sense. The people in the construct with that strength in that area, what we did is we crossed all of these things so that if I lack a certain ability, as Joan of Arc, if we're just going to use that as an example for a while, within the construct, if I lack a certain ability naturally, like tact, there was an agreement within the construct that somebody who does have that real well, like that's a specialty, like you, man, you are gifted. You could convince anybody to do anything. You're fantastic at getting people to go along. Can you guys see me? Somebody tell me if you can see me. This happened the last time too. It says, due to poor wireless connection, your video has been paused. Consider moving to find a better signal. You can end the broadcast. Can you guys see me? Can you hear me? I can't tell. Why do I have a poor wireless connection? Video has been paused. Why is that the case? It's only 12 minutes. Somebody type in right now. Can you hear me? It's okay? Okay, I'll just keep going. Huh. That happened the last time too, where I thought that nobody could see me and I just like went off humming for about 10 minutes. Oops, hang on a second, this Calico. Sorry. Hello, I'm on a live stream right now.
I have a really important question.
Yes.
So
they can hear you though, so don't make it personal.
Can you go over my room and look for a piece of paperwork?
Not right this second, because I'm on a live stream.
Need it.
No, I can't do that right now. I know I can't do that right this second. No, she hung up. All right. So the deal is that you could draw on somebody else's qualities for the purposes of being able to do something that under those conditions of density you would not normally be able to do, like extreme endurance. Like I had that ability for a really long time where I could go 6 days without sleep because I would just keep drawing in, borrowing other people's energy for the purposes of accomplishing the joint goal. We've had that for a long time. Or call in, and we're actually going back to that kind of system where if you are connected properly, you have the ability, when it's all properly connected and properly running, you can call on, like in mental telepathy, you can just call in somebody else's knowledge of a given thing and you don't have to carry it personally. So it's a real good way to operate. When it's not running, you don't have that advantage. And you can run into problems like this example that I'm about to give you. If you go into jealousy and you start to think, well, somebody can do something that I can't do, if you twist that in your mind and you view that as a negative, and you get jealous and you think, well, I want to try this too, but you're not connected really. This is why it's very important to stay in the flow of those you came down with. If you separate, you immediately break the circuit, and we don't have the number one, you left the rest of your team, and that's that's no good. It handicaps everybody. This is what happened with the money, where I did all this work and I sent all of this money to a given person, and the deal was that she was supposed to pay for my living expenses, and we were going to, you know, that in the new financial system, you get to keep as much as you will give. The geometry changes. So instead of being a geometrical structure that's like this, where you hoard and you keep it all for yourself, you basically go like this. Instead, you go through the 11 gateway, and you're going to be serving, offering your gifts to the degree that you receive them. They have to be in equal measure, so you can have as much as you will pass forward, but there's no hoarding at all. And that is to enforce the sharing dynamic, to promote flow. But because everybody who is there has passed through this gateway, everyone knows how to do it. Everyone knows that it works, and everyone's also really keen on doing it. So the amount of flow is just, that's where you get this instant manifestation. I've used this example before, but it's like, if I have no knowledge of Shakespeare, but Patrick Stewart's connected, I can just say, boy, I wish I knew a sonnet, and I just have it at hand. You know, the offering, we all, in the fifth dimension, we all look for opportunities to give, because that means we receive more immediately. It's a sacred vacuum. And it's like, yeah, as soon as I give away what I have, I open up a space for me to receive even more myself. And it's not that you can't hang on to something like, you know, like a spouse or a house, or you can still have your own possessions, but beyond what you need personally, you can have as much as you will flow, but there's no hoarding. Excessive possessions or excessive knowledge without sharing, you can have you can have everything. You can have as much as you need. It's just like oxygen. Like you're guaranteed that you're never going to run out of oxygen. It's just there. You can literally have as much as you need, but you can't merely, inhale perpetually. At some point, you've got to be able to maintain a flow. I want to finish this example. The assassination on the bridge. In the Middle Ages, there was an idea. You have to establish the energetic platform that is stable and authentic and honest. You have to really establish a quality. What's the word I'm looking for here? Something about the energetic platform has to be honest, stable, and sound. Level. Before you go forward on it, because if it's corrupted, if you go forward and you base your actions the way they were in the past, when the energetic platform was corrupted, it was allowed to be corrupt, and because it wasn't honest, it didn't work. There were places where it fell through. You have to make sure that the people who do certain jobs, whatever the job is, are in authentic alignment with that task. Authenticity it's not about making everybody fit a particular slot, but make sure they're in alignment with the slot that they have. Like, don't try to make yourself into something that you genuinely are not. That's a big fat error. In the Joan of Arc lifetime, or shortly after, there was the idea held by King Charles VI, that I put on the throne. This isn't a criticism, I'm just using it as an example. I'm sorry, the 7th. King Charles VII, that I put on the throne. There was the idea that because there was an inherent ability to know about how things should look. Like you should, if you want to make, like we should have a treaty. And he didn't actually want the treaty, but he wanted people to sign the treaty, but didn't really care about unifying, or didn't really care about, not really a big connection person. His energy in truth was really one of division. But I can appreciate the fact that there's the appearance of making a connection. Like if you have if you think, well, in order to get my way, I'm going to make a pretend alliance with this other party, and in order to make it appear like we're genuine, we're going to have them sign a peace treaty to end hostilities. We're going to do it in the middle of a bridge. This really happened. I can't remember the name of the treaty, but it was basically like, well, we're going to arrange like almost like a PR stunt. And we're going to have the two warring parties meet in the middle of a bridge, and we're going to say this puts an end to hostilities, and we hereby sign this peace treaty in the middle of a bridge. And it was orchestrated by a person whose energetic platform, their own personal qualities, did not match that. They were really but I said it goes by percentages. Like, in order to get that person to do that job and have it be effective, you would have to have a majority of their energy actually be in alignment with unity, as opposed to more in alignment with division. You would have to get 51% of their energetic strands in their template that were actually in agreement with that. What you had instead was somebody who knows how to fake it. And even if the attempt, even if like they want the event to go well, but they're not really a very peaceful person. They're really, trying to fake it. They're putting more of their energy into the facade than they are with the truth, the reality. But without knowing that, it's understandable that you would say, or somebody would say, okay, I think that I'm going to see if I can get this person to sign a treaty from the middle of a bridge, and that should do it because you've got the symbolism, and I should be able to, get it to work. It's kind of the same way as what I said the other day. Somebody who didn't know, who had no real sense of taste, trying to learn to cook. And if I were a good cook and I said, well, group things by similarities. And they said, okay, I went and from my pantry, I pulled fish, fennel, and fig Newtons, and I mixed those together. And it's not that the principle is wrong. It's that there's kind of a misapplication, and it's an initial attempt. If you keep going, you too could learn to cook. It's not that you're a bad person. It's that you don't quite know how to navigate that yet, because there's just a lot of misinformation. You're going from an old system that was in duality. So what happened when this person who set up an event as king, but wasn't a peaceful one, didn't really want the unity, but set up an event that was based more in like making a spectacle, or like, I'm going to put on this show and I want people to think that I'm a good king. So I'm going to have these two warring parties meet in the center of a bridge, and we're going to let there be peace and let it be signed. And what they got instead, every force evolves a form. And what took place instead was an assassination. And that's because the energetic platform was corrupted. And it was really, there was much more energetic weight going in the direction of conflict and falsity, division. The person who orchestrated the event was fearful and lying about it. you could take the same event, and if it was handled by a different person, that person, if they were being authentic, could say, I'm actually feeling a great, if you were in honesty, you'd say, I'm really nervous about getting the two of you guys together. It makes me genuinely feel, you know, things could go down, could go south, but I'm going to go forward on the foot of honesty. I'm going to allow myself to have my vulnerabilities exposed in public. That's going to give me the strength. I'm already making a genuine connection with both of you from the position of my own honesty, and that's going to give you the energy. That's going to set the flavor, set the energetic platform where I come in all honesty. And I really hope that we can have a peaceful, energetic platform. From that position, if that kind of person brought the same warring parties together on the same bridge, you may not have gotten that assassination. That's an actual event. And what it did instead, that event served to reinforce the person's idea that nobody can be trusted. You know, you see, there was a betrayal. When you realize that, when you have a kind of a global comprehension about the way energetic forces interact, and what happens on one side is going to, if you're talking about sides even, what happens over here is going to have an effect over here. Things do not work in isolation. It changes the way you navigate everything. So let's see, there was that. Hang on a minute. Oh, fame. I was going to talk about fame. Oh, I was going to talk about this first. What time is it? Hang on a minute. Okay. 5:22. I wanted to talk about the idea of the apocalypse and the idea of hell. One thing they've said, my guides have said, is that, no, I'm not going to take you out right now. I'm going to be talking in the future about, I'm going to be talking about reconceptualizing ideas about the church, formulating new ways of taking the information that was taught about the church, about social structures. Stop, walk away. That's enough. Go lay down. In order to prevent destruction, total annihilation of the old systems, what I'm really trying to do, despite the fact that I don't like them, it doesn't matter. My whole job is to get the traditional structures to flow and function so that the people who do rely on them and are very committed to holding them can still find their way up to fifth dimension. There's a way we're going to have to play that. They're not in a place where they can jump ship. They're too scared to do it. They need to be, I heard somebody say, loved into the kingdom. There's a way they're going to have to which is appropriate. There's a way they're going to have to be brought safely out of a control system that they believed was safe. It never was, but they believed it was. So we're going to have to get them to come out of that in a particular structured way, so that they don't go into so that they don't experience a great big blast of fear and consequently lash out with hostility, and that would cause them to fall backwards like the Nestea plunge, and it would cause a great big wave that would go up and tank the rest of the fifth dimensional collective, and that's a bad idea. There's a way that we have to play the Exodus. Play is probably the wrong word, but basically it's kind of like that. There's a way to navigate different groups so that they're less fearful, because in a group dynamic, as we connect all of these realms, the lower dimensional fear, even though there is a certain level of protection, that is true. That is actually happening also. But those that are coming up need to be handled in a way so that they don't fall back down, so that the fear isn't so extreme that they can still cope, so that it's survivable. Not everybody has the same coping mechanisms in place. They have to develop it before we can add more to them. This is why we took the bulk of it off their shoulders as much as we could. But we can't do their work for them. They have to do their work, but there has to be a safe space. They need to be able to be held while they do that. That's important too. So there's a way we're doing it. It's taken a lot longer. Yeah, it hasn't gone as well as we had hoped. The certain things are going real well. It's just the yeah, let me get back to this for a second. So let's talk about the idea of hell. So one of the things that they've talked to me, that they've said that I'm going to be talking about reconceptualizing areas, reconceptualizing the teachings of the Catholic Church and a lot of other things, so that the churches aren't demolished completely. We've got to get the corruption out, but there's a certain avenue of exit that is going to be safe and comfortable for the populace. The idea of like right now, we're trying to avoid a backlash. One of the things we're trying to do is avoid a humongous backlash on the Catholic Church among a whole bunch of other social structures. I mean, if you're following politics at all, I'm not even following politics, but as information comes out, we have to make sure that a lot of fear doesn't get sucked back into it. You know, pedophilia in the church is revealed more and more. You know, we didn't realize the scope of it, and suddenly unless it's handled correctly, the tendency is for the people who hear this, who are still in a very dualistic state of consciousness, the tendency is to say, go into a big purge mode, which partially we want. The purge does need to happen, absolutely. But you can't purge forever. When the purge is gone, you're gonna need to purge and then breathe in the light and the oxygen. You know, you can't just perpetually stay in a loop of blame. You know, you had pedophile in the church and it's just one big fat lie. It's important to recognize that the pedophilia, the corruption, the churches on the ley lines and the suppression of women, blah, blah, blah. Did that all take place? Yes. So now, will you please be part of the cleanup effort? Because that's what we really need, muscles. We don't really need more people on. There is still a line that needs to go through that. Everybody's at a different stage. We're all marching out in waves. The whole idea of hell. I saw this post the other day, and it was written to be like this big reveal. Like, you see, a bishop, I can't remember, it was John Shelby Spong or one of them. I actually really like him. High-level member of the clergy admits that the idea of hell was just made up to terrify people. And so if you couch something in that way, you're going to get a lot of people riled up. You're going to probably be able to galvanize a lot of people to flock to you and say, you're right and we're mad too. You can develop a certain mob mentality and get people behind you. Is it going to serve the upliftment of the planet? Possibly within a certain strata where a purging needs to happen. If those people need to learn how to stand up for themselves or fight, then that strata serves a purpose. Can you stay there? Yeah, if you don't want to get yourself out. There's a way to look at the information so that it doesn't further more hostilities. You can look at the same information, and part of the energetic construct is that we devised a system put together in the sixth dimension so that, or assembled there, so that two people would go on each point, very, very rudimentary diagram, so that each point was an 11 gateway held by two individuals in a 3-to-1 ratio. And within this soup, we would gather, basically let, oh, you scared me. Hang on a minute, please. Stop. Thank you, you're very responsible. Very responsible dogs. Thank you, go away. So that the idea was we put Joan of Arc in the center, we create a celebrity, we get a whole bunch of hoopla. When people engage in that dynamic, and also a lot of the people, I will also say, I wasn't the only one lifting. There was, there was King Charles, there was the previous king, there was Isabeau of Bavaria, there was Yolande of Aragon, all sorts of people in the public eye, that being the entire point, because when you had, particularly in the Middle Ages, when there were fewer celebrities, you're trying to engage the mind because energy goes where attention flows. So if you have everybody looking at a celebrity or somebody in the public eye and having that kind of focused attention, you get a lot of their energy, and the energy is going to stay until it's deliberately changed. So the way we were trying to haul out the populations, it was 100 years war, and it was just 100 years of stasis and compression and density and conflict, but the French weren't fighting. So it was just like laying down and getting raped and being, and surrendering at the faintest whiff of the English because, after Agincourt, who blames them? Anyway, we were trying to get certain populations to move in certain directions so that we could churn up, get the thing moving. And the idea was we formed an energetic construct to get as much energy into here as possible so that each pair of people, and you also as a given being, like I'm on about half of these different points, and like I took basically the light side and somebody else took the dark side, and there's circuitry and ways that it's meant to pull the energy. That's why there's a rotation in place. But the idea is to maximize empathy in the center by making a great big soup that's going to be experienced, that is comprised of everybody's viewpoint. So let's say Joan of Arc is in the center, but also on one of these 2 points. Am I really going to explain this now? Hang on a second. It's actually kind of complicated, but let's say there's a different person on every point, and it kind of deals with a different group. You're going to try and get their energy into the soup, which is going to circulate, and because energy runs in 2 directions, the idea was we could maximize the empathy felt by all of the populations without trying to convince them or even have them listening to us. Is it taking away their power? Yes, but they were all idiots and they were morons at the time. The belief barrier, it was a way of involving free choice while still being a parental figure and getting in there and taking as much of their, we went on a 10-to-1 ratio, which makes the 11 for the 11 gateway. Basically like that, a whole idea, take one step toward the gods, they take 10 toward you. There was this structure in place that we designed in the Joan of Arc lifetime so that we'll take 10, we just need one little permission from you and we're going to go and do all of this for you. Is that going to last forever? No, it's basically ending as soon as we get you through this 111 gateway. But it existed for a time because we were going to lose the entire crop. I mean, we were called in to help with saving Earth over a very long-term strategy because there was just no evolution going on. And so you try to jumpstart your people, but you have to you have to do it under certain parameters, one of them being it is a free choice planet. So everyone still makes their own choice based on vibrational drift. So whoever they're attracted to is whoever's kind of in there. It's like you're going to be in my jurisdiction because you're leaning more toward the light side than dark. So I'll be the steward of you. And I'm going to try to, believe it or not, in this construct, we really are trying to get people's power back to them. The idea being that if we can make it up through the 11 gateway, there's full equality. We take hands off and everybody gets equality back. But there was a way of maintaining free choice, but bypassing some of the, getting past the belief barrier, etc. It's actually kind of complicated through history. Very, very long-standing plan. But the idea was that we could maximize the experience of diversity and empathy and also help the populations balance themselves. But first you take them into a state of division because you have to separate the wheat from the chaff. You've got to get them to have a leaning, have an opinion before you vote. You know what I mean? But you've got to, so we measure them. We can tell whether their energy is predominantly light, predominantly dark. We're encouraging them to develop a certain amount of muscle if they have it. A lot of them didn't. Most of them at that time were still really sleepy, or they have a certain belief system that is so rigidly adhered to that they're not even trying to make their own choices. So there's no way they're not going to make it through the 11 gateway by the Ascension window unless we take steps. So it's not all an evil agenda. Some of it is incredibly benevolent, where you're just trying to get your people up and growing. Why aren't these people developing? So the inside was soup, and then you try to, between the inside of the energetic construct and the two individuals on each side, we form this network, a cooperative network where it's the light and the dark working together toward a mutual aim. And then it's a 3-to-1 ratio on every point. So we're trying to restore balance, and also energetically, like the people, if you're a member of the populace and you look to Joan of Arc or another celebrity and you kind of delegate your power to whoever, and it would pass through this portal, and then it would go in here and be mixed up, so that by the time you would kind of gain, but it has your energetic signature, your own personal energetic signature. So you would kind of intermix, and there's a certain amount of homeostasis that happens in there, so that by the time it comes back out, you've received the assistance of forces that do know how to balance things. Like, we're going to help you do this. We're going to help you balance it, help you gain some empathy. You're going to have the benefit of all of these people's experiences that are going to see what your energy does with that. And then when it's time for you to take it back out, you're going to kind of you will have been marinating in a structure for a while, or, you know, intermingling with different crowds. It was just a way we thought, well, maybe we can help them gain a certain level of experience without, because we don't have that many lifetimes they have left. At any rate, that's the goal. We're not entirely sure how it's worked. Some of it has worked, some of it hasn't. But where was I going with this? There was some reason. So the deal was with the energetic construct that it remains in place. We dismantle it from the top down, and you have to be careful. Like, you can't just unlock the thing and like everyone just let it fly. It doesn't work. It has to be, there's a way that it has to be dismantled, and it's dicey. Like, the same way if something has a real lot of tension on it, you can't just, you know, clip it. It's gonna blow all over the place if you do that. It's kind of like you have to get everybody to their respective classrooms. Everybody travels at different rates. There's a lot of squabbling. It still scared me. Hi there, I'm on a live stream right now. The whole thing rotated backwards at one point, and that for the last 6 years, it has been rotating in reverse, and that really sucked. That's what led to my current financial situation. It was supposed to rotate one way, and it went backwards, and it started a 3-to-1 ratio. The Joan of Arc lifetime took the balance. The 3-to-1 ratio is like happens on each point. The idea that we're trying to help them rebalance it. It's 3-to-1 ratio because 3 is a catalyst for change. 1 establishes the direction. And 4, once it becomes a 4, it's kind of locked in. So what we were trying to do, anyway, it rotated in the wrong direction, and instead of it going into a 2-to-2 balance, it went to a 4 and 0, which heightened and locked in the imbalance, which is not what we wanted. So that's basically what we're trying to recover from now and still get our people out. It has put us behind schedule by about 5 years. It's all right. I think we're gonna manage it, but there's been a tremendous amount of adjustment, and the thing that led to my going back into poverty from, extreme poverty. I know that I don't have the luxury of like going out and getting a job and just pretending that I'm not in this construct. I don't have that luxury. It has to work a certain way, or groups are affected. Huge groups are affected. So I don't have that luxury of just saying, well, I think I'm just going to quit. You can't really do that. I could go to 5, and that's the only option I have right now, is to go to 5 unless there's room for me to come down. So I think that there's some reorganizing there, but I can't be sure since nobody's talking. They're not talking to me. I think they might be talking behind me, which forces the energy to do certain things. It's very interesting because every force evolves a form, and it works in a layer of opposition. So if this is, energy can only do certain things, and you can't pull on just one side of a rubber band. It's going to, this is not the only pairing system. We've had pairing systems all over the place. They're all intertwined. And another analogy would be like if this structure was made out of magician balloons, and if in order for me to get the amount of verbiage, energy of verbalization that must come from me because I'm speaking against I'm speaking up for a lot of people, and I'm the voice for a population that has had a great deal of resistance to hearing them. So the amount of verbal energy, communication energy that has to come from me in order to heighten my ability so that I have the ability to do that, there are agreements that you make with other people in the group. So, for example, my twin is not talking to me. It's like that gets squeezed off. And what that does is it gives more pressure. On one hand, it's very frustrating if I want to hear from, I wish he would contact me, but I also know that he's helping me do my job. The other people, so it's going to present one way. It's like every force evolves a form. So if you look around at the way certain events are manifesting, certain objects even, certain health problems, certain anything that comes into a form, one good thing to ask about it is what would the energy have to be in order for this to occur? And there's going to be some way to look at that that's positive, and then there's going to be a way to look at that. You can see it basically as a bonus or a adversity. There's a way to use it to your advantage, though, no matter what it is. So right now, it's very interesting. In order to get my there's also another thing where, like, on the chessboard, on the Council of Balance, when that was operational, that's been taken off too. It still exists in certain places, space-time. There are places where the Council of Balance, like, I could travel back in space-time and go there, but it's not exactly on the leading edge. We don't need to have that in place anymore, since it was the Council of Balance was put in place to oversee this energetic construct in the Joan of Arc lifetime. Council of Balance took place in the 12th dimension, way off the timeline. We assembled the construct in the 6th dimension with certain people. Only 2 of us came from 12 to go down into the energetic construct. Josh and I are from the 12th dimension. With the appropriate energetics that we hold. And that's why, like, we have 48 active strands of DNA. It's not a matter of being better or worse. It's just a matter of what tools you need to do the job. So 2 of us have 48 active strands of DNA, and we came down from the 12th dimension and we sit on Council of Balance. We came down to the 6th dimension to work with other beings to assemble the people, the team that would go into the energetic construct that would then do a certain amount of work from the 4th dimension, but have bodies and infiltrate the 3rd dimension where the density was, in order to get everybody churned up and moving. We move a lot of soul energy in the 4th dimension so that by the Ascension window, we can get them up to 5. It's a big fat hassle. But one of the things that's happening now, this is why it would really help me if I actually had some, if you're listening to this and you're in the energetic construct, throw me a bone and a text message to tell me what's going on in, like, in the 3rd dimensional practical physical world. It would help me navigate a hell of a lot easier. I would know where to send energetic streams if I knew where they had landed. And since I have no ability to know right now, since all the communication was cut off here, and here. So that's helping me deliver information publicly. It's because, since I have no way other than telepathy with my twin, my one twin, I have no way of getting information out to these people apart from delivering it publicly. And I'm not trying to steer them or not. They can make their own choice, but I'm assuming that if they need to find it, they'll find it. or it will find its way to them, or that's more the point. It will find its way to them. I'm trusting in God. Like, if you want me to deliver this information, have it reach the people who need to hear it. I am aware that even though they maybe didn't mean to, they might be trying to shut me down. Like right now, I'm aware that I don't know who is doing the stalking, but I know that there are at least three parties that watch me, that are in the energetic construct, and at least two, possibly four, are definitely malevolent. Like I can feel that. I can feel the energy of gossip, but I don't know who's doing it. I could hazard a guess, but I won't. It's going to do, but I also know that if I wanted to stop the gossip, if I wanted to stop the gossip, what I would have to do would be come down here and stop talking publicly. There's a way, it's like every force evolves a form. I'm not explaining this very well. Help me out. It's going to do the same thing as above, so below. The best thing you could do if you want, except these people want to gossip. Like, that's the thing. They want to gossip. So I let them, because I don't care whether they gossip or not. I'm not interested in shutting them down. They shut themselves down when they severed this. You know what I mean? It's like there's all sorts of strategy of energy. When these people get together, and let's say they get together and they gossip and plot, like all sorts of Machiavellian maneuvering that I can sense, but I don't really know who. I also don't care particularly. I'm doing what I'm doing. Honest to God, I'm not stalking. I never look at people on social media. I don't go hunting for your information online. I'm just doing what I'm doing. Regarding my twin, I do maintain regular text communications, but he might not even have my number anymore. He might have blocked that. I actually don't know. It slows, what the texting does is slow my mind down enough where I can send all of that information toward this point. It's a way of, I was actually thinking about that, because I'm not trying to be furtive. There's actually a way of trying to yeah, it slows my mind down so that it helps with the telepathy, slowing the telepathy down. It helps with my own clarity when I do it. So it's not a matter, again, everything has to do with the energetic platform and what is your motivation. If I maintain, it's incredibly important to maintain an energetic platform, because your first creation is going to be yourself. Every single thing in your life is going to be some version of what you're doing, which either you're going to be a match to it because you yourself are fearful, or you yourself are gossiping, or you yourself are doing whatever. It's going to be your mirror, the external. So if there's some external event that I don't like, either I was a match to it or I'm a match for it. And it's a spiritual test. And so my whole job is to make sure that I maintain my own truth and integrity. Am I actually trying to screw anybody? And do I carry a whiff of malevolence? Do I want to see somebody fail? I can honestly say, with very thorough examination, no, I don't. My whole goal is to get everybody up. So if I've done something that has interfered with somebody's own plan for themselves, I hope I haven't done that. It wasn't intentional. I do, and if you don't like something that I've done, contact me and tell me directly. The Machiavellian kind of, the manipulative things, that I'm aware of that energy that is predatory and sneaky, and I can tell when that enters the room. I don't know where it is, but it's kind of like trying to identify. It's like an immediately identifiable smell that you don't exactly know where it's coming from, but somebody dealt it. I don't know exactly who it was. Something like that. There's a certain amount of malintent, which they don't think it's malintent. It's possibly protective for them, or they're scared, or they don't want me to say something, and they're afraid to approach me, or whatever. That's pure conjecture. At any rate, at some point, there's going to be a conversation, and the truth will come out. It was a harsh lifetime, the Joan of Arc lifetime. Oh, here's the other thing. So remember when I said in the Joan of Arc lifetime, every single thing that happened in that lifetime, because it was so incredibly generative, and that entire lifetime planted a seed that affected, and again, I went down with a team of people that looked like, where I was like the figurehead that was the one who planted the seed. And it was like the horn of the rhinoceros, but not the son of the beast. But I was the one who kind of got all the attention. And then the whole goal is that we keep this structure in place until everybody's through 5. And then when we get through 5, the energetic construct is dismantled. It can only be dismantled from 5. So even if you know that it exists, if you're in 3, you can't take it apart. You wouldn't even be able to see it. We did that on purpose. It was a safety precaution to make sure that people didn't screw it up. The downside is that a lot of people think that they're not in it, or they don't want to be involved, and I'm going to keep the money. It came to me. I was going to get that anyway. Well, no, that was not the case, and that screwed up the entire group and took the circle backwards. It stalled everybody. So there is divine intervention there, but it is sure taken a while, man. Thanks. I know you're working on it. What did I start to say about? Oh, I still haven't gotten to hell. What? I was going to say something about hell and density. The whole idea of hell, one way to reconceptualize that is that it's not merely that it turns out it doesn't exist, and that was just a trick that the Catholic Church played on everybody because they wanted to send us into fear. That's one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is that they're actually trying to trying to couch the events that are going to transpire, trying to couch it in such a way that it's understandable, accessible for the people at the time that got the information. So one of the things that's happening is that if you accumulate a great deal of density, if you're in a state of extreme density and you meet a current of very strong, high vibrational energy, you're going to wind up getting a lot of friction, which is going to build up a tremendous amount of heat. That can actually lead to spontaneous combustion. It's not entirely inaccurate either to say that you need to keep the flow of the stuff. Lose your stuff. Don't put value in your stuff. You've got to stop holding on to all of your idea of perceived external security, holding on to a whole bunch of fear and a whole bunch of stuff. You can have physical security, but if you're very attached to it and you identify as that and you're just in the clutches of attachment without allowing for a state of peace and flow and already in a state of high vibrational flow. If you're in a state of high vibrational flow and you are somebody who can let go of your possessions in a healthy way, then when the gamma rays come in, you will be practiced enough, and you're going to be able to get through there. If you're somebody who's in a state of great resistance to flow, and you hoard and you clutch and you are in a low emotional and mental state, when a strong non-negotiable current, the space energy is coming in whether you like it or not, the gamma rays, the photon belt, etc., it's all going to come through the substance whether you like it or not. So if you want to go into spontaneous combustion, you could do that. You're welcome to do that. You do have the choice, but it's not necessarily that there was a malevolent plan always to, there has been a malevolent plan in some cases, but not everything that the Catholic Church did was there to deceive, to trap. Some things were just the way that the population of the time was capable of possibly receiving it. Same thing is true of confession. There's a way to look at it where it could be exquisitely beautiful. There's a way to look at it where it could be, a realm of twisted torture that is just punishment. But at some point, you've got to get yourself out of that hole. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing once we get more people up is that I'm going to be talking about a way that, I guess I'm doing it now, a way to maintain some of the channels in their previous form, like the church. Keep what we can of it. Maintain what we can. Whatever can be it's so funny. Oh, that's funny. Because remember I was saying the other day on one of my previous live streams that there was a range within the construct that we came down in. There's an extreme light, an extreme dark, and then there's a large bunch of gray in the middle we have the possibility of transmuting the gray. The dark is really, really, really committed. They want what they want. You don't have the right to take their free choice away from them. You're gonna love them too and allow them to exist and do what they do. But there's also a caveat to that. I'm going to get back to that in a minute. But our job is to offer transmutation to the part that is where it's possible to transmute it. Basically, you go into the darkness and you take a certain degree of it on to meet it and it's transmute it, but it's also transmuting you into a greater light. Because if you just stay in a state of in a low bandwidth where it's light versus dark, you're just going to stay in a state of conflict forever. My whole job in this lifetime is to bridge that, merge what we can, keep as much of the spectrum as we can. But then there are certain elements that are actually being kicked out. And I was talking to Sarah Adams about that yesterday. I think she just did a live stream. I haven't listened to it yet. Sarah Adams did a live stream, I think, about the subject of there are certain species, certain things are not being allowed to continue. The same way that like the dinosaurs were wiped off the planet because that system was getting completely out of balance and it wasn't sustainable, it wasn't growing in the right direction. You can do some things with it and not others, but we had to like basically wipe the slate, start over. I'm not going to talk too much about this because it's really Sarah Adams knows way more about it than I do, but I did have a conversation with her yesterday. And she is one of these people who goes in and she takes on certain aspects of space war, galactic warfare. I mean, so do I, but we're doing it in different places. And she said, yeah, they were wiped off. Like the decision has been made, not by us. The decision has been made that certain reptilian I should let her tell you. Certain races are not allowed to come back, like period. Completely wiped off the board, retired. We're not going to allow this to perpetuate because it has gotten too extreme. You've been told to stop 5 times. We've given you 5 extra chances over eons. That's it. And now you're done. Shadow has a place, but they've been given too many warnings that they're not doing it. So there are certain things that are absolutely being taken out. So that's why you're seeing a lot of suicides. Or maybe you're not seeing them, but they're happening. There's a sequence of events that's coming up. I don't think it's going to affect any of us necessarily. If you're listening to me, probably you're not one of these, not one of them. At any rate, even if you are, I wouldn't know because I'm not looking at that area of the spectrum. I've been told to focus very strongly on the creation of the new. Focus, 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 focus on the creation of the new. Maintain my connection to the twin, my twin. Certain things I'm aware in the construct are being sorted out. And I feel like I may have taken a misstep someplace and caused a problem for somebody, but I honestly don't know what it was, so I can't address it, and maybe they don't want me to. I don't know. I'm just leaving that with them. So where's the thing? So if you're interested, okay, am I going to say this now? Wait a minute. Huh. In the third dimension, be aware, in the third dimension, there are certain behaviors that happen with a third dimensional, how do I want to say this? Clutching. It's like when you're attached to the third dimension and let me say that differently. The paradigms, the structures, the social paradigms, the social institutions, when you're very, very too rigidly adhered to that belief system, and you believe that that is your stability and your security, and so you clutch and hold on to that very tightly. It's the realm of the individual where things occur, and you have the experience in the third dimension of just the individual experience where people seem to be separate from one another, and you take care of yourself, and it's kind of, you know, me versus. And then when you get a little bit more evolved, you start to take care of other people, your family, your immediate group, your tribe. There are certain behavioral automatic responses. They're kind of people who exhibit certain behaviors are kind of easily identifiable as being third dimensional or not. It's not a judgment. It's not a judgment. It's not that there's a hierarchy of value, but there's a hierarchy of spiritual maturity. And the same way, you know, when you have a short human being who's flopping around and screaming and they're about 2, you know what level of maturity, like you're a toddler. And so toddlers exhibit this behavior because this is the level of development they're in right now. It doesn't mean that they are of less value than a 5th grader. It just means that certain things are very predictable. People who are in the third dimension tend to take things very personally. It doesn't mean you can't be in a body in the third dimension and also be a spiritually mature person. But with a certain worldview come certain behaviors. They tend to be very easily offended at that level. There sometimes it's the realm of the ego. There's kind of a false dignity. They're usually very attached to appearances and what will the neighbors think, because they're searching for the external validation as opposed to finding it inside. Where was I going with this? Where was I going with this? Oh, I was going to talk about fame. That's right. There's a whole bunch of stuff is going to be coming out. This is a weird live stream. Sometimes I get more channeling. And I never know until the camera turns on. And sometimes I'll turn the camera on and it'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it just comes in and takes on a life of its own. And I have no way of predicting, really, at all. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and do some channeling. And then they're like, no, you're on your own. Use your pad of paper. All right. Oh, gosh, because I trying to figure out a way to orchestrate this information. Yeah. Wait, hang one second. What's this? I keep intending to talk about fame. One moment, please. I'm going to take you out afterward. There's a cross. I'm going to use this diagram for a second. Pretend it doesn't say division and unity. I just want to look at this structure because there's a way that we ran things in the energetic construct to enable, because my whole job is lifting groups. A huge, large-scale group migration, trying to get groups to the right various levels, various strata. How are we going to get everybody up here? Well, preferences. One of the ways that we've done that is through the use of celebrities gaining followers. When, just as I said with Joan of Arc, when you create a persona that's in the public eye, if everybody is paying attention to that person, there's a two-way, the energy runs in two directions, and the energy of that strand is going to remain, even if the celebrity dies. Like you've got Marilyn Monroe, who still has a quite a following. People like that. The actual physical form is basically disposable. We could wipe out the pyramids tomorrow, and there would still be, the pyramids themselves in energy form remain, and they still have all of their properties. So one of the things we did with the Joan of Arc lifetime is that we established the Joan energy stream with all of these beings that were feeding into it from the top. Yeah, and plus we also had various beings like, like King Charles VI, King Charles VII, Isabeau of Bavaria, Yolande of Aragon, Bastard of Orleans, here. Well-known figures in the story, and the story itself was generated and built up and built up and built up, and we kept it very intentionally running through the consciousness of the collective so that it would continue to generate energy. Do the sleepers know this? No, they don't. Not all of the manipulation that goes on in the fourth dimension is malevolent. A lot of it, it's about half and half. The dark side's trying to get their people and work their agenda, and we're trying to prevent them from working their agenda from the fourth dimension if we're talking about what's going on in 3. That level of manipulation stops when you take your power back. That would be an example of once you wake up and you say, oh, I don't have to go through an intermediary, or I'm beginning to see energy myself. So now I recognize that there's I've been lending my power to that structure and I don't want it anymore. I'm taking it back. Once you take it back, you've cut your cord with that, the person you were connected to. So part of their spiritual journey is taking your power back from wherever you may have left it along your own personal journey. But there are still a lot of sleepers. So for however long it's still usable, the Council of Balance has been taken out of, it's been dismantled in 12 because the ending is coming down. Things start at 12, and then it comes down through the timeline till you get to physicality in the third dimension. This is where things happen. But before it lands, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do while it's moving. That's why we program in certain things into timelines, and then we watch the way they shift, and there's a certain amount of collapsing of timelines and maneuvering that goes around. And probabilities, what you're really watching is for a shifting in probabilities. It's like being in the hub of a wagon wheel and seeing down all of these different roads, or like crossing of streams of water, where sometimes you'll get, like, imagine two hoses that you're waving them around, and sometimes if the water merges, the water's all going in the same direction in a greater amount, and consequently you suddenly have a much higher probability in that direction toward that timeline. But then every once in a while there will be like ones that combine and then they cross again. And what determines that, it would be one of two things, or a combination. It would be sometimes the way people react, because you're working within a toroidal field. I kind of got off on a tangent, but you're working within a toroidal field where those of us who can maneuver energy from a high position, we're trying to manage the responses of the collective. We're trying to manage the fear responses. When it comes down to when it goes up to the Council of Balance, we would be paying attention to the way, like, for example, the waves of fear or something, or waves, or whatever the reaction is that happens down here in the toroidal field, and then it comes up here. And when it gets to the top, that's your opportunity. If you're on the Council of Balance or some other, if you're at that strata, that would be your opportunity in the top level of the toroidal field to move things around to whatever degree you can, so you can arrange a synchronicity to give this other person another opportunity, like try it again, or avoid a disaster. Like, we can't, if there's a huge wave of fear that comes up from the populace, when a bunch of darkness, like, boy, they didn't really handle that really well. We tried to prepare them, but it didn't work. They all had a fear response. There was a mass shooting, and as a consequence, there's this big hunk of fear that's coming up from a certain location. So what I would try to do, if that were the case, is, as a being who's working for the light, I would try to intercept that big chunk of darkness, and I would say, I think I'm going to divide it. I'm going to take 100% of this dark energy stream, and I'm going to try to position it. I don't have the ability or the right to cancel it out and make it only light. I have certain options that I can do from that position, and I could say, well, the dark side is going to get its due, and this is what the people wanted, and apparently they still need this lesson. But I have the option of dividing it into, like, something that would be dispersed like static, so that a little bit of darkness goes everywhere amid the light, and it's just like one big field. I could do it that way. I could say, well, this place is sitting pretty and they haven't had a bad experience for a while, so if I send something over there, it could potentially serve for growth. But the overall, I'm looking for balance, and I'm looking for growing opportunities, a way to mitigate damage so that it's less severe, so that it causes the most growth while still being survivable, while still having a benevolent outcome, etc. The dark side is, we're really not adversaries. We're really all looking for balance. But that's what happens in the Council of Balance while it's operational. And then you can come down in certain, at certain levels, there's a lot of much more personalized attention that happens in the fourth dimension, where from that level, in that strata, archons are much more aggressive and less cooperative. they have much more personalized agenda of their own. You know, we're going to take the darkness, as much of it as we can get, and we're going to target it and try to make more darkness. That's what like someone like an Archon will do. Whereas the in the fourth dimensional strata, someone like an Archangel would say, well, we're going to be much more purposeful toward light action. On the Council of Balance, there's actually a much more neutral quality to it, where the goal, we don't really have our own agenda. The odd thing in the Council of Balance, too, is that we have crossed everything because the overall goal is so cooperative that from a position of density, there are two of us, my twin and I are both from the Council of Balance. If I'm in a position of that's much lower vibrational, but I'm arguing for the light side, which is much more active, there's a way that we flipped physicality and energy so that we're in service to another. In the 12th dimension, we're actually in service, arguing, or it's the wrong word. We're working on behalf of the other, as opposed to trying to argue for ourselves. That was very deliberate. That's to promote balance. That serves the overall aim of promoting balance. A good way to think about it is, for example, if Disney Corporation if there was a fifth dimensional version of Disney Corporation and they came to me and they said, we want to partner with you to revolutionize the school system and make a movie about your life, and we want to present you with this offer, here's this contract. In a third dimensional world, they would say, do you accept this offer or not? And in a third dimensional world, they would be in a position, in theory, to take advantage of me, get a very good deal for themselves. But since I have no expertise and no resources, they could approach me with a very good deal, and I'm very eager to help. And so I would potentially be in a position where, from a position of being completely naive, they could potentially really take advantage of me, and it would serve even if they wanted to use my skills and ability to navigate in the fifth dimension. If they approached me from a third dimensional platform, this takes me back to what I was saying about the assassination on the bridge. From the third dimensional stronghold that they are right now, if they approached me and offered me something, my approach would be to say, the first thing you need to do is, rather than thinking what can I do for you, use your legal team to get me to offer me the best deal imaginable. That would really be the best way for them to get into 5. What you're looking for is equality and a flip. You're looking for an even exchange. So if for example, if I have a body of expertise and I carry a massive organization, a network, huge organization in the fifth dimension, and the Disney Corporation has an equally large third dimensional corporation, but I have no way of navigating in the third dimension. I have no legal expertise. I don't have any ability. I'm basically powerless and clueless in the third dimension. It would be a really decent, they could get the best deal for themselves if we flipped it, and if they came to me and said, or this is what I would do, if they came to me in some sort of an exchange like that, it would behoove them. If I said, take your same team of legal experts and orchestrate for me, use your skill set that you excel at. And if you really want a partnership that's honest, take your network and give me as much as possible of the benefit of it without trying, I mean, really see how much you can, what kind of a great deal can you orchestrate for me? Because in the fifth dimension, you're going to get back exactly what you give. So by giving me the best, like just a plum of a deal that gives me as much as you're capable of giving me, you know, like you use your team of lawyers and you try to focus on, is there any loophole that we're missing? Is there any way to stack properties so that we can offer even more? Because by offering more, you're going to receive more since the geometry is different. And in exchange, I would say the best way to get a good deal for yourself is to give me the best deal that you could possibly imagine. And if you're an expert in imagining and an expert in creating stuff and an expert in, if you want the benefit of my entire system, then give me an equal benefit in your system with all of the avenues that you can touch. And that would stay in balance and you could maintain the amount of power that you have now, but you would lift the entire thing up to the fifth dimension. And that would be a really, really sweet deal for them. That would maximize their growth very easily, and they would still maintain their liking of control, because they still like because you're trying to maintain everybody's authenticity. You don't want somebody to pretend to be something they're not. So if they're a third dimensional company and they have a corporate structure and they like their structure and they like their control and they want to have, but they know they're smart enough that they can see the future. They're very future oriented. They like to partner with children. They know that the new children are coming in. They know that they like to branch out into all these places where I have avenues of fifth dimensional branching. It's like a tree. That there's a way to make an even exchange that would absolutely lift that entire corporation and have them be on the forefront, except it's non-competitive. But you could absolutely lift up you could save your entire corporation, your entire network, by lifting it up to the fifth dimension, provided you offered that to one who could carry that energetically, which would be me. Just a suggestion if you're listening. But for example, there's a way to play the energy, because in the fifth dimension, you can keep as much as you can offer, as much as you will offer, as much as you are, so whatever capacity you are serving and are actively flowing, you can keep that as much as you actively flowing. The only thing you can't do is hoard. So the best thing you can do is find a way to serve more if you want to establish more security, greater connectivity. In the fifth dimension, your security is no longer going to be about the tangible hoard. It's not going to be the savings account. It's not going to be the structure, although your structure can go with you. But the institution, the reliance of the external for your security, that's what's changing. So this is one of the reasons why when we talk about instant manifestation, it is easier if you're looking at the flip, like pretend this is a figure eight. It's not really a figure eight, but let's just say if you're looking at, I should really have a figure eight. I'm going to make a new diagram, but let's just say this is a figure eight. And you're thinking about the toroidal field and the way instant manifestation works, and the way our own energetic stream and our point of focus goes in, it's like a big fire hose, and you can direct it by percentages. And you're going to get manifested, you're going to receive a manifestation based on to whatever percentage your energy is directed, either toward the substance in the third dimension, like the pre-made, versus the the portion of the toroidal field that's like above your head and still in unmanifested form. You wish it existed, but it doesn't exist yet. There's actually a way, if you're relying on the external and you're somebody who's coming from a position of relying on substance for faith. I put more of my faith, like I'm not gonna believe it until I see something tangible. Then most of that really limits the degree that you can bring things through on faith, because you're placing more of your faith in the substance than you are in what has yet to appear. So there's one of the ways you can look at, you need to kind of flip it in your mind. If you're one of the people who has lost everything, I mean, there's going to be probably more of you. But a lot of the leading edge light workers are like, they've lost a lot of the things already. They're living in their cars. They've lost a lot of their substance. That's not entirely, or I shouldn't say their substance. They've said goodbye. It's like spiritual maturity often comes through the process of a lot of loss. Doesn't mean it has to, but usually that has some real advantages, because you're actually in a better position when if you're in a place of being in this portion of, if this is density, and this is like the realm of faith, and you're here, or I should say, if you're down here and you're heavily if you're investing most of your energy down here, it's actually a harder place to have instant manifestation from, because you're going to need to be fearless, number one. If you're in a place, if you're walking in 0 point, it's basically the equivalent of walking on water, where you're focusing on the reality that is bringing, the things that are like in semi-solid form, but your faith has to be there, your trust. Everyone has a trust fund. So I was trying to figure out the other day how I do what I do, because it's different when you're working for a group. I know that if it was just me, I could have had myself out of this hole a really, really long time ago. Why do I find myself back here again? And I know why. It's because I'm trying to lift a huge amount of, I'm trying to take a lot of other people with me. That's like, I'm a spiritual mega athlete. And I get that about myself. I could bounce back up really, really super fast if I was just myself. But I made this agreement. I made this agreement to lock myself into this harness, basically, and say, no, I'm not going to take my eye off this goal. It would be easier for me to, like a draft horse, it would be easier for me to get up fully if there was less resistance, if certain other members in the construct would either, if they lost their stuff, that would actually alleviate a lot of the pressure on me. It's just sometimes a hard thing to lift. From the position of 0 point, you're actually looking, usually what happens with your energy is that you're placing more of your energy into either praying, because if you don't rely on yourself, even if you're scared, like, first of all, it's going to be harder to manifest if you are scared. But even if you are, and let's say you've lost everything and there's been like some natural disaster and you no longer have your stuff and you know that you can't go back to the home that you had. From that position, it's actually, you're likely to finally be looking in the right direction. You're likely to finally look up toward God, and you're either going to ask angels for help, or you're going to, pray, or at least be open to a new solution, which is going to allow something new to come to you. The downside of that particular scenario is that you're probably experiencing a certain amount of heartbreak, devastation, sorrow, fear, whatever, which is going to lower your vibrational frequency often. But if you're somebody who can maintain a fairly high vibrational state while walking on 0 point, like Maria Therese and Lawrence Wendell are great at this. I talked to Maria Therese. She traveled alone through 25 countries on $0. And she's brilliant at instant manifestation. Just being able to imagine that something good, but being totally open to it. Something is going to come in. I don't know what it is, but it's like you focus on it and then you say, bring me a solution. And then you throw it up into the quantum field and you allow the people, like on the Council of Balance, like, well, we see that somebody has the right, they're in alignment, they're holding faith, they're trusting that something good is going to come in, and they're still in a high vibrational state so that they're in alignment with the good that can be delivered. And from a higher dimension, we're going to be able to see there's going to be a vibrational matching process that goes on, and the exact right solution for them that matches them is going to simply land there. It doesn't happen by accident. There's quite a bit of it's not really on automation. You can also do things if you're in that position. You can do things like call in a miraculous solution, call in divine intervention. Give me the best possible outcome for all parties. The highest possible, put me on the highest possible timeline. Make sure that I get to my destination via the best, the highest possible, most miraculous way imaginable, and have it come to me in some way that will surprise and delight me. Bingo. And then you just trust that that's going to happen. It doesn't always. And then sometimes you can ask for guidance and protection, and there's all sorts of good light worker tricks. What was I going to say about this? Oh! What time is it? All right. I was going to say this too. Am I going to talk about this? No, I want a diagram for this point. I was going to talk about energy being like a wave and a spiral, and the way things work backward and forwards in time. Time doesn't just go forward, it goes backwards as well. So sometimes the foreshadowing that we see is, it's endlessly flexible. So there can be a core event caused by a reaction, and you can actually experience the reaction, some of the reactive response before the event even takes place. And this is the way certain things like prophecy happen, and like foreshadowing in movies, where it wasn't like they had a meeting in 1985 to decide what movies were going to be made so we can so that we can have pieces of disclosure come out that tell about 9/11. It's less of a creative plotting space, although that does happen in the third dimension. I'm going to talk more about that later because I want a diagram that goes with it. That's also, when I do want to make one correction. When I said in a couple of other live streams, I think I said it in this one too, that in the third dimension, the creative ability is limited to a reaction or a response. Something comes in, there's a form or circumstance, and your creation is basically limited to the way you respond to it. And I had said that all of the real creative ability belongs to those in the higher dimensions who are doing most of the orchestration. That doesn't mean that humanity is powerless. That means you're powerless. You're powerful enough to control the response. Like, you can still bring about peace on earth or something like that if you remain in a peaceful state when something that would normally cause you anguish happens, or if you bring it back to 0 point. So if I want a diagram of the toroidal field, I'm going to have to make one and bring it back. But if you think about the toroidal field, the individual would be here, and then energies, you know, you react in your heart, your emotional space, and then it comes down into form. It goes down into form. The same way babies are birthed. They're not birthed through your head. They're birthed, it comes down into a form or a circumstance. That's where you experience what you created. If you have, let's say it's like a mass shooting or something like that, that affects the public, that's the degree to which you can affect one of the top tiers, or some of the, you know, the energy that's above your head. It's not that you have no effect on what happens above you. It's that your source of power is still in your heart space, and it's based in how you respond to things. But that doesn't mean that you're powerless. I realized when I listened to the past live stream that I may have given the impression that humanity doesn't have any power, and that's not true. It just means that, or, you know, creative power. It just means that it's reduced to how they respond, and they can't pull in energies and begin to create from a higher vibrational space until they are in a higher vibrational space. And then you can begin to combine energies to actually make a different substance. That's what magic and alchemy is all about. You could be in a body and reach that space and like be in the body, but not of it, and do it while in the body. You can do that. I'm going to talk about that a different day. I wanted to talk about when I started this live stream, or the previous one, we got cut off. I opened the live stream by saying that it's a really good way to start your day with an act of blessing or an act of service or some sort of action that establishes your personal energetic platform from which you're going to live throughout the day. It's a very good time to do that. When you first wake up in the morning and you're in a state of you're coming out of a space of non-resistance, and you're very open and relaxed. So to draw in guidance, and then take an act of service, or take some sort of an action that is linked with your intent. And by taking an action, it's going to it brings it down into a physical form that's going to establish kind of the world that you walk in. Take the energy, take that peaceful energy, and with intention, deliberation, link it to a form or an action, some sort of thing in physicality. So I had said that that blessing the birdseed and stacking intentions to maximize the amount of energy that a simple act can carry. Whether you're washing a dish and you say, I'm washing all the corruption out of Congress, or something like that. I said in the other live stream that I've been flushing Monsanto for years. Think of something think of the number of times you flush the toilet. Think of something that you want to get rid of, and every single time you take an action, put that intention, link that thought. This is all my negativity and all my cells. This is my with this action, I'm flushing all of the waste from whatever, all the ancestral trauma that's, I don't know, whatever you want to get rid of. But begin to develop the skill set of using your mind to attach your own energy, an energy stream of your choosing, attach it, link it to an action that you take in the physical world, and then take the action. So when I was talking about the birdseed, and I said that I bless all the birdseed in the feeder, every single time I do it, I bless the birdseed when it's just birdseed, and then when I put it in the feeder, I say, well, this batch is going to represent my intention that every single one of these little seeds is going to be picked up by a winged creature. I'm going to enlist the the assistance of another species. It's going to go toward interspecies communication, interspecies alliance. It's going to be carried exactly where it needs to go to take my blessing far and wide. I'm blessing the bodies of the birds. I'm blessing, nourishment for all beings, whatever. Play around with stacking things like that. So I was thinking, one of the things I like to do is figure out a way to stack energetically. How can something that already exists, like I noticed something the other day, somebody sent me a clip of something on, I think it might have been America's Got Talent. They sent me a clip of a couple who they had an act, they had auditioned, I guess, on, or somehow been on that show, America's Got Talent. And their act, the reason this person sent me this thing, it was very interesting, but I thought that they missed a huge opportunity. This goes back to partnering with Disney or partnering with there's a way that you can get yourself out of the third dimensional mindset or go into a third dimensional arena. That's the way I wanted to say it. You can go into a third dimensional arena, and I happen to be fairly good at this, figure out a way to maneuver within the same venue, do a couple of things that will not change the venue specifically, but change the energy within it so that it maximizes your profit, gets a whole bunch of energy to go up toward 5. You gain a whole bunch of cooperative people who are going to eagerly follow you, but you're not trying to wrangle them with any kind of malintent or manipulation. That's not it at all. That would backfire big time. You don't even want that. Why would you want that? You can't take manipulation up to 5. You can't take manipulation or malintent someplace where it doesn't exist. But my point was, so America's Got Talent. So it's a competition. Number one, it's already in the television. It's a competition. So that doesn't exist in 5. But there's a way. So I was looking at that whole thing and saying, number one, I don't like the fact that it's a competition. It makes me very uncomfortable. But there was this interesting act where it was a man and a woman, young couple. They could be married. I think they're romantically involved, but they know each other pretty well. And their act was something like mind reading, where the man stood on the stage, or the woman was on I don't know, one of them. I saw this a while ago, that I was thinking about it though for a long time. It was basically a telepathy act. So what happens is that like the woman stands on stage, and the man, they have this telepathic link because there's a love connection. Then the man walks around during among the audience, and he has total strangers take something out of their purse. Don't show it around, and all he does is he looks at her, he holds it. And she is able on the stage to read through his hand or see what it is that he's holding in his hand. And so everybody was like, oh my God, how do they do that? And all the mouths are open, like, wow, I can't believe she did that. You could read the prescription on the prescription bottle, but you couldn't see it. And everyone's like, oh my God, how'd that happen? And I was thinking, first of all, I know how it happens, but I was thinking that they missed a huge opportunity, huge wasted opportunity right then. And they could have changed the entire energetic platform of that whole act toward benevolence and there's no competition in the 5th dimension. There's a way to get everybody totally on board with you, empower them completely, not even lose your edge. It's not like you're going to tell everybody. Number one, they did something that I think they didn't realize. So the reason their act is strong is because they have a love connection. And because of this connection, they have this ability, which is great. So I have no problem with that at all. But what it set up, I was watching it. I don't really remember the specifics of the act so much because I was looking at what happens to the energy. So what happens to the energy is they have, so okay, you're on stage. You're going to get everybody looking at you, and I know from personal experience, I know what that does. That sets up a two-way energy stream. So when I look at a woman on stage, she's getting some of my energy, and I'm also getting some of her energy. And this is why it's important to recognize how things are mutually beneficial, because the audience that was looking at her was envious. They don't know how she did that. Even when you step into a competitive space and one person is going to win this contest, granted, that's the venue, I recognize that. But there's a way she could have turned that around. They could have turned that around immediately on the spot from that position of competition. If they had said something like 2 sentences, they could have flipped the whole thing around. If they had said, and also take it into a space of full transparency without losing anything that they already can do. So it's not about sacrificing their skill set. They already have that, and they have that because they have a personal love connection. That thing needs to stay there. You need to strengthen that, if anything. But the way they could strengthen it, the way they're handling it, is likely to weaken it because they put their audience, who are now looking at them, they put their audience into a space where their audience feels somewhat envious. Like, how can you do that? How come I can't do that? I wish I could do that. What they could have done to strengthen not only all of the energy all around, but also their own bond. They could have said, the reason we're able to have this miraculous ability where he can put his hand on something and I can read through his hand the prescription in your purse, the reason we can do that is because we based our connection on love. Our whole connection is based in transparency, connectivity. So since he's not hiding anything from me, we connect very, very easily. And therefore, my cells are connected to his cells. We have this mental ability. We've agreed to go into full transparency and full sharing. So that way my mind can travel and I can pick up all of the energy, even though if he's holding something in his hand from a distance. This is the way things work when you're connected. You can choose to do it or not do it. Doesn't mean that you can't turn it off. But they missed an opportunity. What they should have done, instead of putting envy into the crowd that's then looking to them, and now they're picking up darker energy that they then have to transmute if their connection is going to remain clean. Do you see? They could have said, the reason we're able to do this is because, number one, we're in love. We remain in love. We have full transparency. And this is something that every last one of you can do also. You may not know how to do it yet, but we're just showing you that it can be done. This is the way Jesus taught. And in that moment, they retain their full transparency. They retain their act as an act of service. They maximize everybody's attention on them because other people want to do that too. And rather than saying, no, we're going to keep something a secret and engaging in agreeing to a space where it's either you or me, or I'm going to retain my privacy and set up a wall. You can't have that act if you're in a wall space. The only reason they have that ability is because they are in the space of connection without walls. So if you take all the walls down and maximize your transparency and say, we can do this because we're in a space of transparency and love. For fuck's sake, retain the space of transparency and the space of love. Do it with every other person in the audience, and then you get them to say, we want to do that too. And then instead of polluting the energetic field in the, in the loop. They have maximized it. They've amplified it by an entire crowd who wants to do that. They've gained the same number of followers. They've probably increased the number of followers. If you then said something like, you can do it too. Every last one of you has this ability, and we're just showing you that we're proving that it can be done. And we're very eager to teach you how to do it. And by the way, we have this show. We can also be seen here. Well, they don't even have to win a contest at that point. You don't have to give your power away to a judge. Please pick us. Please pick us for the golden buzzer. Oh, damn, we didn't get it. Well, don't give your power away. Walk in the authority. Be the thing, the shift that you wanted to see. You make the space yourself. And then you walk off, and all the people who watched you walk with you. You've reduced your resistance substantially. You took the prize rather than waiting for somebody to give it to you. I actually don't know if these people won or not. I'm not following their career. I think that somebody said that they, I don't know, they were seen, I think they're in Vegas or something. But talk about something that it's going to be kind of a harder thing if they did go to Vegas, or if they have some sort of a venue. It would be interesting to take that energy into a space of someplace like Las Vegas, which has, with all of the energetic principles that carries. But my point is, there's a way to take any energetic intersection. You're going to have this intersection of energetic forces where in any institution, like a major American competition, and it's interesting because especially like America's Got Talent, and then you've got all of these other countries. This country has talent. I recognize that they do this partially because of language. And, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do, but it's interesting to observe, pay attention to where the division is. To what degree are you placing attention on the division, the competition? Are you paying attention to the tribal aspect? The whole idea of America's Got Talent, and it's a competition. It's just interesting to watch. So I look at that whole venue and I'm like, what energy has to be here in order for this event to occur? You've got 4 judges, 4 is for structure. You've got an array of competitors. One thing I have not figured out, I admit it, I can't for the life of me figure out what's the purpose of those. I understand what purpose the judges serve. What's the purpose of the celebrity or whatever it is who's off to the side just like reacting? It's like you've got I don't understand what those people are doing. It's like Tyra Banks, or it's like it's that other 2 pair. Why do they? I don't know. There's something about this. I don't understand what purpose they're serving or why they're there. I just haven't figured that out yet. I understand why the competitors are there. I understand why the audience and the judges are there. But those other 2 people are like off in the wings. I don't know what the hell they're there for. They're just like, we're just supposed to watch their reactions. I don't get it. Whatever. But I also watch choruses a lot. My guides will often, this is something I haven't mentioned, my guides will often tell me to go look at some piece of choral music, and I'm sometimes very surprised because it's not something that I feel drawn to necessarily, but they will tell me to go look at it, and then I'll go find it. I'll be like, oh yeah, I see. Because when I see something, I can read the energy in a given interaction, and I say, oh, I know that they will show me something because it's pertinent to the groups at large, the interactions of what's happening in society. I can tell what's coming in by what they show me to watch. There was on my timeline, I think I'll post it. I think I'll post it again. They showed me, they told me to watch some children's choruses. And then on Lionsgate, I was drawn to watch a particular version, choral version of The Lion Sleeps Tonight. 2 versions, one was way better than the other, but then I was watching this one version, which they told me to watch, and they told me to watch it for a reason. So and I have a background in choral direction. When I was John Stanley, I directed very large choruses. I know the way they work. I know what he's trying to do. I know what he's trying to get them to do. But then my interpretation is, why would my guides want me to look at this particular thing? It has to do with this juncture and what's happening with the orchestration now. That's why they're telling me that. So I'm looking at the way it's playing out. And for Lionsgate, they told me to look at The Lion Sleeps Tonight. It was a funny version. There's like I can't, they tell me to watch this, and I'm like, there's either going to be really bad or it's going to be they could surprise me. It was a boys' choir, and they're all in suits and very upright, and there's a massive organ, upright pipe organ in back of them, and they're all very Lego-like and extremely tense. And then, so I was surprised. So I was watching it, and it was very predictable boys' choir. And then, but like they got the jungle noises, and they start to sing away, and then it takes on. So there was a portion of it that I was like, okay, maybe they'll make it work. It takes on like a hula hoop kind of thing, and I'm like, all right, they got it. And then there was this thing, there was kind of this portion, the orchestration, the arrangement. It was like suddenly there was this very, very British Lego obelisk that's like stuck in the center, where they just all go back into unison. And it was I thought, wow, that really, it sticks in your ear. Like someone just jammed a Lego and you're like, boy, did you lose the flow when that happened. So I kind of recognized why they showed me this particular music. And like right after Lionsgate, and you've got this thing, and you can expect this from these people. And like, okay, this is the way my spirit communication just works this way. The other thing that was notable, and they also showed me this particular piece of orchestration from, I forget the choir, but it was interesting that they were dressed in gray, and it was a city choir chorus, and they tell me to look at the orchestration. I put this on my wall too, so if you go and look at it, it's worth noting. Look at the way the orchestration works. And I don't even know, Calico laughed at me because I couldn't understand this. Apparently it's some song that I don't know. Like, I'm familiar with The Lion Sleeps Tonight, but this is a particular thing that my guides told me to go and watch it, and I watched it, and I understood the orchestration. I understood what they were showing me, but I still couldn't make out the lyrics of the damn song. I was like, what the hell are they saying? And I said to Calico, when she came out, she said, oh, you're listening to that song? I love that song. And I said, what the hell is a silicon holder? What is that? And she laughed, and she came and she gave me a hug, and she said, oh, mama. She said, the ceiling can't hold us. That they're saying the ceiling can't hold us. And I was like, oh, because now I can hear it. But I was like, a silicon holder. What the hell is that? At any rate, there's this orchestration, and they're all dressed in gray. And it starts out, and it's very traditional. The orchestration is like still water. It sounds basically like very traditional chorus, and it's very lateral, and everything is very smooth. And then there's a break, and it's a space where it's silent, basically silent, for 4 beats, and it's just, and then they move on 5, and they all break out, and it's this, well, I'll leave it on my timeline, you'll go see it. But my guides told me to watch that because you've got this space where everything, it's like we're switching realms, right? This was right around Lionsgate when I watched this. And so it's all very placid. And you think that nothing's moving. And then if anything, there's a space between, but it's a space for 4. So it's 4 for structure. So the structure goes silent. There's a major shift in there, but you don't hear it. It's a silent shift, but it's a silent break in the structure. And then there's a blast out moment, and then there's a variety of soloists. So it blasts out into movement, it blasts out into rap, it blasts out in, you still have harmony, and you also have a number of rotating soloists. So I'm like, yeah, that's 5D all the way. You go from a very 3D structure to 4 spaces, 4-beat space. And then it blasts out into something that is way more mobile. It's moving. It's very circular because there's rotating soloists. It was really very, very good. And not to mention, the song is something so the ceiling can't hold us. I didn't hear it. My hearing's totally screwed up. Did I mention that? I think I mentioned that before. I'm almost completely deaf in this ear, and this ear has a 30% hearing loss, but I'm incredibly clairaudient. Like I don't even know how to turn that off. So I don't hear I miss a lot of the noises that other people can hear, but I hear everything else. So it's kind of a weird, wonky way to live. I like it though. So distortions in space-time. What time is it? 7:06. I got a little bit of time. Bridge frequencies. Oh, I was going to say this. Negativity goes somewhere. When you clear negativity, like with this bell, the thing the bell does, it's not clearing the negativity per se. It's clearing the imprint. It's clearing it's breaking up the structural components of the channels, the structural channels by that were kind of like the autopilot of the energetic channels. So remember when I said, like, if we were to take down the pyramids, if the substance of the stone of the pyramids were suddenly vanished, the pyramids themselves in energetic form are still there because they've been there for so long and there's been so much energetic work that has gone on there. They're so powerful to begin with that it will have very little effect on the energetic structure of the pyramid. In order to get, and so like if you're a fan of somebody, or if an energetic structure, if a certain pattern of energy goes along kind of like in a particular stream for long enough, you could take the water away and the stream bed basically remains. And you could so what the bell does is it takes away the stream bed so that the water, the energy is free to go in a different direction. So that if I want to change the direction of the energy, I would ring this to break up the equivalent of the stream bed so that the energy, I didn't clear the negativity per se, but at that point it's open to being shifted. So that's what this bell does. So to like gongs and sound healing does largely the same thing. And then you have to, if you want to clear it, you have to add the intent that this negative energy or this energy is going someplace else. And then if you don't want to, if you don't want to be the one responsible for where it goes, then you can delegate that, and somebody in a higher dimension will take it and be responsible. Like somebody like me in the 12th dimension will see negative energy, and we're constantly rearranging things like that. It will probably join an existing current. If you do nothing, it will join an existing current that's close by. It will kind of, be free floating. But then you can also transmute as much as you can transmute if you want to transmute that. At any rate, negativity goes somewhere. The bell clears imprints that keeps things from moving. You still need to initiate the intention to produce a form, or the intention you still need to establish the flow with a clear thought of your own if you want negative or positive energy to go do something. What's that? Who just knocked that off? Come here, dogs. Oh, there we go. Nope. I'll put you over there. Nope, you're going to fall if I do that. All right. Let's see. Toroidal field and balance. I think I might. What else was I going to? I was going to say something else. I've got a number of you on here now. Should I keep talking? Oh, let's see. What else was I going to? I was going to talk about bridging frequencies. People go out of your bandwidth a lot. And so sometimes, like family members, I know in the energetic construct, if this is the earth, this is the middle. There was a point where my energy shot off in two directions, and one, like I left my body completely. If my physical body was here, my energy went off into two directions, and this was like in 2013. And I left my body, and yeah, at any rate, in order to get that, in order to bridge the light and the dark sides, these two things are so far apart in terms of bandwidth that you have to go through someone else can meet you halfway, basically. So for those of you in the energetic construct, if you're listening to this, one of the reasons that I was texting the people that those that I was texting has less to do with my intention toward deception, which I don't do. I don't do that naturally, and more to do with it. I can't reach where I'm supposed to go. The only way I can reach it is by taking a particular route, and I'm just trying to get a certain job done. That's all it is. There's no malevolent intent if that's your concern. All right. Oh, last point about this before I redo it. So the yin yang, I'm going to wind up doing a whole live stream where I talk about issues of balance and the way the balance of forces work. Because there's always an equal and opposite reaction on the other side. And part of coming into a peaceful state, number one, you have to recognize that not everybody wants a peaceful state. Some people really, 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 really want to go off in their own direction. And I admit that I'm hugely tempted to do that often because I don't like to come down to form. I find it very, very uncomfortable. There's no place for me without cooperation. I'm willing to come down into form when it's survivable and comfortable. And I'm willing to share all of my expertise, but I'm not going to do that until there's a space that's comfortable for me in case I feel welcome. At any rate, there's a way that the center works. The light contains all colors in light. White light contains all colors. Black pigment, the substance, contains all colors. So I just wanted to point that out. But there's always going to be an opposing reaction. There's something as above, so below. So whatever happens for light and space, unlike on the I never know what to call it. I'm tempted to call it the spirit side of it, except there's spirit and substance too. So I can't really say that but for the purposes of clarity, if you think about density and light, black pigment is a combination of all the colors. And the correspondence in light is that light contains all the colors, white light. At any rate, okay. Organizing principles. I'm going to wind up talking about the toroidal field. Is there anything else on this pad that I need to discuss before I sign off? Even individuation is a cooperative effort. So there's a balance of all things, and no wonder I can't read my notes. This is terrible. I think I drew this when I was in the car. That's supposed to be a toroidal field, but I did that at a stoplight. Even individuation is a cooperative effort. If you look at, and every single strata has its own geometry. So if you look at, for example, like the flower of life, and other people call it the daisy of death, and it's all of these overlapping circles that produce an individuation. But in order to get that particular individuation, it's a cooperative effort between two circles. So there's always a way in to individuation, and then there's a way out that's the same way. And whichever direction you go in, it's a matter of which direction you pointed yourself, which is a matter of where you focus with your mind. So all of that is in your control. And just like that couple on America's Got Talent, there's a way to maximize whatever circumstance you're in, no matter how competitive, no matter how individuated, no matter how much it's in. And I share a distaste for it, but that's why I'm so interested in getting people out. Getting people out of competition. You don't have to demolish as much as we're tempted to. And we might do certain things like the pharmaceutical industry. You don't have to demolish all of healthcare. You do have to change it so that it's doing different things. So just the same way, you can take the same act on America's Got Talent, and by adding 2 sentences, you could completely change the energetic effect, the way energy was flowing, if you know how to do it properly. We need to start pointing our minds in that direction. Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it on that note. I'll probably be back tomorrow. All right. I love you all. Bye.